Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj. I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. And today I'm going to introduce you to Margaret Morganroth Gullette. And she is a social activist who's worked for many years in Nicaragua, and she is an author. So we're going to find out exactly how she got there. Welcome.
Thank you, Karma. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you here. But I know you told me that years ago you got involved in Nicaragua. So how did that happen?
Well, actually, it was when my first book came out. It was the year my first book came out, and January 1st, 1989, it got reviewed in the New York Times, the Sunday New York Times.
And what was the name of the first book?
Safe at Last in the Middle Years, which was not a statement I was making about the middle years, but it was a statement about the authors that I was looking at, who included Ann Tyler and Margaret Drabble and John Updike and Saul Bellow. And my husband's book was also reviewed in the New York Times Book Review that same Sunday, January 1st, 1989, by a fluke. And then a few days later, we left for Nicaragua. Now, his book was about Nicaragua. It was a translation of the peasant poets of Solentiname. We had some money to spend there. It was only $1,000. We had to figure out how to spend it. So it took us the whole 3.5 months we were there to figure out how to spend it. We found a mason and we built a playground for the preschool. They had been playing in the mud in the rainy season. Well, the rainy season is most of the school year, so that was a good thing to do. And then we decided at the end that the kids were not eating properly. That is a perennial problem in the schools, but we thought we had enough money left to, we had bought some playground equipment and done some other things, that we could give them the missing vitamins. We were, at one point in that visit, I turned to David. It was nighttime. We were in bed, and I just held out my hand, and we shook hands, and I said, "Another great day in Nicaragua." And we just felt we had sort of dedicated ourselves to doing something for our sister city.
You said, that you've been telling me that you created some wonderful new things for that little town. So why don't we talk about what your contributions have been?
Oh, thank you. Well, I just want to give a lot of credit to my colleague, my Nicaraguan colleague. She was a very young woman at the time I first met her, and she and a Belgian doctor had started a clinic. We have a photograph of the three of us from early on in those years. Rosalena is my colleague. Patricia Claes is the Belgian doctor, and me. Anyway, Rosalena and Patricia had started a clinic in 1990 when the Sandinistas lost. The Sandinistas had won the revolution in '79, but they lost an election in '90. So the neoliberals came in, and my colleagues felt, quite rightly as it turned out, that the budgets for health and welfare were going to vanish, or at least be decimated, right. So they decided that they would start a clinic, and one of their first programs was food for malnourished children, a program which is still running and which Newton still helps with. Anyway, when they started this clinic, they decided they were going to do prenatal care, and they were going to give a lot of health education to women. And after they had done this for 5 years, they came to an astonishing conclusion. And it was very smart of them to do the survey that allowed them to learn this. What they learned was that they were not improving the health statistics despite the prenatal care. And then the well baby statistics, they just were not. They weren't improving as much as they wanted them to.
And what was the reason?
Illiteracy. But at this point, they came to me and they said, well, we'd like to do a literacy program for women.
So are you saying the women came to you?
No, Rosalena and Patricia Claes came to me. They said, we have an idea about how to run a program. And their brilliant idea was that we would have a teacher in, I think we had 33 villages. Maybe we had 31 villages out of the 33, but we were going to have a teacher in those villages.
And I think you also mentioned that it wasn't so clear to some of the women that, that this was going to be helpful to them, right?
We had to convince them that literacy was the way to go. And I think you have a photograph of 3 of the women that I interviewed when the program was about 3 months old. And they were in the health clinic. And I said to them, why do you want to be in this program? They were 3 of the top students that came from the rural areas. And one of them said, so I don't get cheated in the market. And one of them said, so I can help my children with their homework. And one of them pointed to the poster that was right behind her, and she said, it was about AIDS, actually, but she didn't know what it was about. She said, I want to be able to read that poster.
How long does it take an adult in that situation to be literate?
That's such a great question, Karma. Most people don't realize what it takes. We gave them 3 full years. They went around the school year. They didn't take summer vacations. They didn't take holidays. They didn't take, and they did it in 3 years. And they came out, not all of them, but 265 of them came out at the end of the 3 years with an elementary school diploma. There's a photograph, actually, of one of the school houses in which we had classrooms in the rural areas. And you can see what people's houses look like in the rural areas. We were in the patio, the teacher and the students. I think there were 8 students in that class. That's a little village called Cebadia, and it was probably, they have a kitchen, living room, and bedroom inside that little space behind the patio. And then the woman sometimes cooks outdoors in a little shed behind the house. But they did come to us then, and they did say, we would love to get a high school education.
Isn't that amazing? You must have been so thrilled
to
see what you have done.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
To inspire these people.
And we opened very small in a primary school. We're still in that primary school, but I think the first year we had a commencement.
We have a picture of that also.
Oh,
right?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's yes, that is the primary school, right? And that's opening day.
Is there some connection between the work that you do in Nicaragua and the books that you write?
Well, I haven't been able to get Nicaragua into any previous book. The books have not all been about ageism, but they have been about age in American culture, and about what I have seen as the decline narrative of American culture. The discourse you get is the discourse of your particular culture, and we were getting, and in fact to some extent we're still getting, a very negative discourse about menopause and the changes that follow. So that was declining to decline. And then by the next book, I felt, Aged by Culture is the title of that one. I felt I could say, well, that's why we age. That's what ages us.
Because of our cultural assumptions and the discourse about aging.
Age discrimination. I mean, I had been talking about midlife job discrimination. First time I wrote about midlife job discrimination in Declining to Decline, it was at the very end of the book. In the new book, Age-Wise, it's the beginning of the book. It opens with a woman that I knew who we were having an email. I've known her since she was an adolescent. And she said, I've gotten a recent, she's 55. She was 55 at the time. She said, I did an MA, I did an upgrade in my skills, my computer skills. Now I'm out on the job market. Nobody's interviewing me. I can't get an interview. And a friend of mine says, it's because of my age. She said, I had no idea.
So what would you say is the main thrust of Age-Wise? What do you want the reader to take away?
Beware of ageism, not aging. If we can solve the problems of ageism, we can go a long way to making aging past youth, aging into the middle years, aging past the middle years, and even aging into old age. Mm-hmm. We can make all those, all that more of a progress narrative.
Well,
so
I would love to have more time to talk about age-wise, and I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming.